Hello, beautiful goddesses. Halfway through our journey, we've received these bits and pieces, these mythological threads, these inspirations, rituals, inquiries, self reflections. But how are we going to activate and awaken our own inner priestess? How is it that we step into feminine awakening in an embodied way that becomes our truth, our relationship to life, our relationship to ourselves, our emanation to all those that we're around? Your morning practice or your daily practice, which often starts as your once weekly practice or your twice weekly practice, or if you're a mama, we do the best we can, right? But this is where the rubber hits the road. If we desire to embody the full spectrum gifts of the dark feminine, the full spectrum gifts of our inner child, our maiden, our lover, our warrioress, our inner mother creatrix, our enchantress, our inner witch, if we desire to cultivate our innate priestess gifts, to awaken the ancient feminine wisdom within us, to activate the superpowers of our root, if we desire to move towards our big picture dreams and visions and goals and to be medicine for the world, if we desire to amplify our creativity and our magic and our intuition, if we desire to unleash our wild and free feminine nature, we absolutely must step into our feminine embodied practice. We've touched in on this so far with Aphrodite and with the temple priestess. How are we creating sacred space to be in our pleasure, to be in our sensation? So, first, with the feminine spiritual practice or the feminine embodied practice, is that we want to be cultivating our own overflow. We want to be coming from a place of overflow in our lives. We want to be sourcing from inside so that we don't expect or necessitate our life or our partners, our parents, our kids, our job, our our relations to fill a hole inside of us. Because in reality, we are always the only ones that can fill that hole. And this is the mystic truth of the feminine. So we come to our feminine embodied practice in order to cultivate this space of diving into our inner well so that we're not praying for rain, diving into the endless source within us. And the next piece is we want to emphasize this daily feminine spiritual practice, feminine embodied practice, or at least a regular feminine embodied practice, in order that we can access the feminine. Because the feminine lives in our aliveness, our sensation, our presence here and now. Masculine spiritual practices like meditation, while essential to supporting us to cultivate an understanding of what is our ego mind and what is our true nature as stillness, only accesses part of our nature, that stillness nature. What is it to dance with the fullness of sensation? Sensuality, sensation, being in our senses, this is such an imperative gift of the feminine, not just because it's fun to feel pleasure or because the feminine is just so sexy, right? Like, this is part of the feminine superpower because sensation is life. Shakti, the feminine, the goddess, is life. Shiva is but a corpse without Shakti. That is the tantric saying. So even when you see the Nataraj, the dancing Shiva statues with his leg up, the tantric truth behind that is, where is Shakti? Shakti is the goddess, is the illumination that allows for the dance. Shiva is nothing without the life force that is the feminine. So the feminine, she moves, she expresses, she feels, she's in the fullness of life, the eros of life. She's in tune with the erotic nature of life. And this, of course, means sensations that are joyful and pleasurable, sensations of are like happiness and, sensations of pleasure, just as much as sensations of anger, rage, terror, fear. All of this is the aliveness of Shakti. All of this is on the spectrum of our soul. There is no judgment around sensation. It is aliveness. It is life force. It is raw power. And when we can cultivate a relationship to our own sensation and to allow more sensation to move through our bodies, we are inherently building the container to experience, to really step into the truth and the bravery required for shadow work, for those places within us that have closed off to love. So often women come to me and they say, I'm so in my masculine. How can I be more in my feminine? And the reality is, baby, you're not in your masculine, you're in your trauma. And this is true of pretty much every woman that I've encountered, as well as myself, is that those places in us that have armored are not masculine. like we armor, and then our defense is to be in the perfectionism or the accomplishment or the achieveness or like the hard ass boss bitch, vibe. That's a trauma response. The masculine is actually the essence of safety and providership and safe containment. And the feminine is, there are a million shades of the feminine, right? We're exploring 5 feminine goddesses. Like, there are like billions. And in order to move out of our masculine, let's say, we need to not, it's not that we become less masculine. It's we step into like what is true, what is real for us. And we can only find out what is real for us if we're like in the fullness of our sensual expression, our experience, our creativity. So thus the importance of a daily feminine practice. And I invite you to visit the Back to the Basics folder daily practice in order to explore feminine daily practice that might be different from your own regular meditation or, spiritual practice. I can tell you that my life changed dramatically and continues to change and unfold the more that I invite feminine practice into my life. The more that I dance, the more that I sing, the more that I touch my body. This is essential, right? Because this is where we can activate and awaken numb parts of ourselves and step back into sensation, which is our ally to experiencing what is true for us. And our intuition literally lives in our sensation. That the gut womb intuition is embodied. It is like, oh, this feels good. This feels right. That is a sensation. That is an internal sensation. So feminine spiritual practices like body oiling, body massage, dancing, singing, praying as you move, letting your hips be your prayer, drinking sensual plants, drinking cacao, drinking rose, drinking nettle, connecting and communing with plants, letting your eating be a sensational experience, letting your communion through food and drink and lovemaking and emotion, even challenging emotion, like letting yourself feel that, letting yourself be in that, letting yourself surrender to that. This is the way to access the feminine. This is the path of feminine awakening. Because until we are cultivating a space where we can receive sensation, we will always be wanting more from life. When we talk about shadow work and when we talk about the dark goddess, what we're really talking about is those places within us that have closed off to the more. Those places within us that have closed off to our own aliveness, to the flow of life force. The places within us that have shut down because the sensation was just too much at some point as a child. And that's trauma. So in order to soften and loosen our trauma, we want to create safe, sacred spaces where we can connect to our feminine superpowers so that we can invite them into areas that feel more challenging for us. Areas where we're asking, areas where we're craving like more liveness, more power, more leadership, more money, more sexuality. Like, what do you want? What do you crave? What do you long for on a personal level? This is the reason we long for that is because our container doesn't currently have enough space to hold that. Our nervous system doesn't feel safe enough to hold that much money, that much energy, that much power, that much sexuality, that much aliveness, that much attention, that much business, that much friendship and communion, that much just pure surrender from a beloved. These are spaces within us that we can directly address to nourish to both tend to our trauma body, tend to our inner child by cultivating deeper compassion and deeper capacity to breathe through those sticky spots, deeper sense of safety in our lives, deeper sense of sourcing from within. So we're like less like beggars from life. And also places where we can not only tend to our trauma, but also places where we can just literally expand our capacity for sensation. Because when you dive deep into trauma work, into shadow work, into dark goddess work, what she's really asking you is like, what are you here? What are you born to do? And how much joy, how much communion with spirit, with your own divine essence, with your own truth, with your own knowing, with your own power, with your own radiance. And by your own, I mean like your highest self, your soul essence that radiates through this physical body, this embodiment, this personality that you just so happen to take as a vehicle in this life. Like, that is what's being asked of you by Feminine Awakening. That's what Feminine Awakening is. That's what's being asked of you by the goddess, whether it is the light goddess of Aphrodite, the light goddess of Gaia, or whether it is the dark goddess of Hecate, the dark goddess of Inanna, of Kali, as we're working with them in this journey. That cultivating a container that can hold sensation is what we're talking about here. And it's both the pathway to all of this like juicy stuff we talk about, like, oh, you know, the things that like like maybe drove you to take this journey with me is like, oh, I want to activate my intuition and my priestess and my healing power and my sexuality and my pleasure and my dreams. And I want to be like fully embodied and expressed in my truth. I want to be in my wild and free feminine nature. Yes, like that is the pathway. This is the pathway. Cultivating a deep well of nourishment. But also those negative, let's say the shadow elements that are like the sticky things that you just can't figure out, these places where you feel shame, these places where you feel stuck, these places where you feel not good enough, these places where you want to show up more, where you know you have more in you, or where you hide. This is also how we address it. Through the regular feminine spiritual practices, which are embodied sensual experiences in nature with ourselves, and particularly with touching the goddess, worshiping self as goddess, to unveil her wisdom to us from a direct way, an embodied way, because no teacher can ever just tell you and then you know. Like, I would love for if all that I speak to you and all of my transmissions to you just like immediately integrate into your psyche and just clear all your shit. But I can't do that for you. Your partner can't do that. No one can do that for you. It has to be embodied. And it has to be a transmission through you. And the goddess moves through your body. The Shakti moves through your body. And she moves through all of life. She moves through the plants. She moves through the emotions. She moves through everything. But the way that you experience her is through your body. All awakening happens in the body. All awakening happens in the body. So as humans, it's not just as women we cultivate feminine awakening. All beings, regardless of gender, who step into the path of awakening, who step into true awakening, of which, of course, it's not like the one awakening. It's not like the masculine orgasm. It's like the feminine rolling orgasm. We're going to have levels of awakening, levels of sexual awakening, levels of up-leveling our business, levels of unveiling our next bravest, most vulnerable soul truth and unveiling that to our people, to our world. Feminine awakening is multiple, like a feminine orgasm. And we cultivate that capacity through a direct experience. So all that we've done so far in 3 months is, it's beautiful to step into these stories. And in the end, how are you making this real in your life and in your body? And the cool thing is that I can tell you, like, as a seeker who I constantly invest in my learning, growth, well-being, coaching, therapy, it is like the way, it is like the largest expenses I make are in these types of things for, since the beginning, since, I, even in my early life, just out of university, when I started managing, I positioned myself strategically so that I could get trainings for free. I literally was a boss babe in the yoga realm of like running multiple studios and having an employee list of 80 people, just so that I could take trainings endlessly, for free. That was just like, I just knew like that's what I want to do. So how was I going to afford, an endless, like how was I going to afford all these like multi-million, things like adding up to tens of thousands of dollars? I was just going to position myself with a job so I could get them for free. So as someone who like, I'm fully endlessly invested in my well-being and growth because like, I just love it. I know it's not everyone's path, but I can tell you that the paths that are effective are the paths that are embodied. And we are very much outgrowing a paradigm of the masculine paradigm of just like learn it by reading a book, like learn it by hearing someone talk, like learn it by just writing it, right? Although journaling is an embodied exercise when we write with our hands. but it requires moving it. And I can tell you that the most impactful women I know, like my most, like the mentors that I have that I'm just like you show me what's possible, and you show me, you awaken what's possible within me. They're women who dance regularly, whether that's alone in front of their mirror or out and about. They're women who touch their body regularly. And I can't tell you the ongoing transformation that happens for me as I wake up in my morning practice and I sit at my beautiful altar with all of like my beautiful things that I just like I love, because they, you know, I have like my oracle cards and my crystals and like my my tarot spread and my, like, you know, of course my earth, my bowl of water, my oils, and I fucking massage my breasts. And I massage my throat, and I massage my womb, and I take communion with this here, and I turn on music and I dance my prayers of hurt and wounding and suffering when that's real and alive, and that just opens up the whole spectrum of tantric awakening, that I can be in an erotic relationship with life. And for so many years, my practice was seated meditation and also like really start chanting. And that was so helpful. And it was such a, like a developmental phase for me. And maybe that still like lights you up, and that is what brings you life. And I'm not saying to substitute that, but I am saying like add in body worship, add in body oiling, add in dancing, add in singing, add in a celebration of music, add in touching yourself through the day. I literally walk through my house and I'm just constantly like this. It feels so good. It has nothing to do with anyone else except my own sensation. And the more that I'm in my sensation, the more capacity I have to hold sensation for other people too. In the sense that like when someone's suffering or struggling, or when someone needs to fill up on joy, like I'm overflowing. I am overflowing, and I have a container that's big and wide, and that can hold whatever comes at me, whatever crazy circumstances, whatever grief, whatever ancestral trauma is coming up to be cleared. Like I have a nervous system container for that, because I cultivate my relationship to my sensuality regularly. So this is also just to clarify what's the emphasis on sensuality is. Sensuality is not just about like this sexy feminine thing. Like sensuality is about capacity to clear your shadows and your ancestral trauma. So I invite you to invest in your feminine practice and to share what brings your feminine alive and awake. What movement, what embodiment, what expression, and to share any poetry or expression that arises from that, or images, and to celebrate your body as the temple of the goddess. Dark Goddess dropping in hot here real soon, so be cultivating that container.